Thank you, Francine, and let me know when you can see my PowerPoint there.
Yes, I can see.
Right.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Francine. Thanks everybody at Optimus. Again, always a pleasure to do a presentation with the Optimus team, one of our top partners. We go back quite a long way, and always love kind of bringing them the newest content that we're focusing on. We actually always, we do a monthly webinar at Insight Software, but I always like to show the team at Optimus first. So I'm actually going to be showing this to a wider audience next week. But again, Optimus always gets a sneak peek because we just enjoy the partnership so much. So hopefully everybody likes what they see. If you have any feedback, again, let the team at Optimus know. I'm sure they can pass it on to me. But with that being said, I think Francine kind of touched on the topic today. What we're focusing on is understanding every aspect of your organization with Jet Analytics. And I'm really excited for this topic. I love kind of working with clients and having them see Jet Analytics. It's just an interesting tool to really help solve much broader challenges. Our agenda today is going to be fairly standard. I'll run through a couple of introductions, remind you who I am, who Insight Software is, and then we'll kind of get into the two market challenges. I'm thinking about these market challenges both in terms of reporting and then in dashboards, but we'll talk about kind of the overall approach with analytics that makes both complex reports very easy and helps enable you to build out a better dashboarding practice and eventually just get more business insight. And then for next steps, what we can kind of focus on, you guys can reach out to the team over at Optimus. And they'll be able to get you anything you need. Like I said, great source of resources there. We've got a lot of folks that are already up to speed on Jet Analytics. They've got one of the most experienced teams out there, so definitely reach out to them. And so again, I think I've probably been heard from by most of the folks on the call. I know I'm a regular on this, but my name's John Phipps. I'm now the Director of Partnerships here at Insight Software, but have been in the Microsoft channel for coming up on 6 years. Really enjoy working with Microsoft partners like Optimus and end users to help them solve their data challenges and get the most value out of their Dynamics database. And just a quick recap on who Insight Software is. What we focus on is helping firms achieve financial greatness by connecting and making sense of their enterprise data in real time so they can proactively drive greater financial intelligence across the entire organization. Got a global presence, 25,000 customers, 400,000 active users globally. Insight as a whole has connectivity to over 140 different ERPs. What I focus on with the Jet team is really Microsoft Dynamics. But if you're on another ERP, again, the Optimus team is kind of very aware of our other solutions. So if you're curious about kind of the challenges that you're seeing be outlined in this session, let us know. We can definitely walk you through the different options. So like I mentioned, we'll just focus on Dynamics today. That's because the Jet suite of applications has a long history in the Dynamics market. Jet's been in the Microsoft Dynamics space for over 20 years. That's all we focus on as a product is Microsoft Dynamics. We're the most commonly used Dynamics ISV add-on. And really what we focus on at a high level is helping users get information out of their Dynamics database and their entire technology stack in a way that's controlled, governed, and secure so that they can get the right information to the right people in the right format. Again, we'll kind of walk through the different applications, but we'll focus mostly on Jet Analytics today. Again, we've got Jet Reports. Probably a lot of folks on the call are familiar with Jet Reports. Jet Reports is our real-time reporting tool. So it runs directly against your Dynamics database, gives you reporting in real time, allows you to drill back into the ERP. Then built on top of that is the content that we're going to focus on today. That's Jet Analytics. That's our flagship application. That's reporting and dashboards against the data warehouse and cubes. I'll walk through why that's so important today and why you get so much additional value. And again, with Jet Analytics, you can do reporting both inside of Excel, but also inside of PowerBI. And then we're not going to touch on it today, but if anybody's curious if budgeting and planning is a big concern, definitely reach out to the Optimus team. We have BizView, which is our cloud-based budgeting and planning application. It allows users to budget much faster across a wider range of their organization build out a more cohesive budget that has elements connected to it, and then be able to forecast what if scenarios. So great application. It integrates in with Jet reports as well. So if we think about at a business level, why users invest in Jet reports, there's kind of 6 key reasons. And I've actually done some sessions, I know with this team here on a few of these, but we'll kind of talk through, kind of why they are, and you'll get little glimmers in the presentation today on how specific reports might be able to help some of these challenges. But the 6 key challenges, you can kind of think about what they are. First one, improving working capital management. Obviously, this has been big over the last year. Helping organizations get a clear picture of their cash flow and what working capital they have on hand. We'll run through a couple reports that can help support that. We'll also look at reducing costs and minimizing unnecessary expenses. Being able to kind of see, okay, well, what am I purchasing from what vendors? How can I avoid some of that? We'll also look at increasing revenue. I'll show a couple of sales examples so you can build out more robust sales reports, get more clarity into your organization. And then optimizing margins. Again, we did a session on that. I want to say it was April. Really enjoyed that session. I found some very compelling content about how many organizations actually have unprofitable areas of their business. It's an astoundingly large amount. The good news is that Jet Analytics is one of the best applications to be able to start kind of profit mapping your organization and see all those details. And then the last 2, we can kind of think about managing risk, thinking about kind of wherever your risk is going to be inside of your organization. For some organizations, that's going to be with, kind of making sure that your customers are not too concentrated in a specific area. It might be making sure your vendors aren't too concentrated. It might go back into that working capital piece, just making sure that you're kind of keeping enough cash on hand. And then the last piece, compliance. So getting reports out in the format that you need for whoever needs them. So that could be the government. Those could be debtor reports. Those could be customer reports. The great part about Jet is you can get all that information out in the format that you need, so you can drive whichever one of these components is important. And then moving on, getting a little bit more granular into actual specific challenges for finance teams. I wanted to highlight this specific slide in the presentation today. At Insight Software, we actually commissioned Hanover Research to do a 2021 financial trend survey. And they actually, in this example, what they looked at is they looked at just shy of 500 financial decision makers to understand what their top challenges are. These are the 6 that came up. The reason I wanted to pull this into this presentation is that in nearly the 5 years that I've been here, that I've been working with clients to evaluate Jet Analytics, out of these 6, I've seen 5 of these specifically come up with certain clients. And so kind of thinking through where that's going to be, lack of time to spend on analysis. You'll see how quickly with Jet Analytics, you can easily create ad hoc reports so you can get the information that you need immediately. Adoption of new technology. We see this a lot with users that are migrating between different ERPs. The powerful part about Jet Analytics is that it's very easy for the end user to use. They don't need to learn another database. They don't need to know how anything ties in. They just need to know, how do I pull the information out that I need? Data limitations and data inaccuracy, kind of a challenge really across the board, but obviously I think some organizations have larger challenges with it than others. The powerful part about Jet Analytics is that it gives you an element to actually clean that data. So you can clean up those details, you can kind of see exactly what you need. And then jumping down to reduced hiring, another big one that we see. You'll see kind of with the speed and ease of building out reports, if you're an organization that doesn't have a full-time report analyst on staff, Jet Analytics is going to support you getting the information that you need immediately. And last but not least, and I think kind of one of all of our favorites to discuss here, reporting with disparate systems. Obviously, we've kind of seen over the last 20 years, organizations, their technology stacks have grown pretty substantially. The great part about Jet Analytics is that we can connect to anything that's SQL, OLEDB, or ODBC, as well as a large number of cloud APIs. That allows you to pull in all your information in a single space. And we'll talk through how that'll work. So thinking at the reporting level, kind of why customers actually invest in Jet Analytics, specifically if you're kind of making the upgrade between Jet Reports to Jet Analytics. 3 key reasons that we've seen. First is kind of fairly complex reports. If you're trying to build out a complex report that's got multiple tables and fields, maybe it's got 5, 6, 7 different table joins, that can be very cumbersome to build. And then if that report has a lot of data, it can be very cumbersome to run. And even if you've got a best-in-class real-time reporting application like Jet Reports, sometimes that can still be very challenging. So users will kind of look at Jet Analytics as a way to get into complex reports very easily. We'll walk through how easy it is to actually put some of those reports together inside of Jet Analytics. Multiple data sources. Again, we kind of talked about this. The average stat, I think, is that organizations are pretty substantially growing their technology stack. I want to say, kind of looking at the last 10 years, most organizations have had a 60% increase in the size of their technology stack. The nice part about Jet Analytics is that you can connect multiple data sources. Give yourself a single data source at which you could report against, making the process of kind of getting all that information in one place very, very easy. The other thing I wanted to highlight in this multiple data source piece is that Jet Analytics can also support the upgrading from legacy ERPs. So if you are going from Navision to BC, Great Plains to BC, if you're going between AX and finance and supply chain, the great part about Jet Analytics is that you can tie all that information together in a single data source and seamlessly report against that. And it doesn't even have to be dynamics. You might have a legacy system that's on Sage and you're going to Business Central. With Jet Analytics, you can tie that historical information, still keep a full picture of your business, but then also be tied into kind of what's happening on a day-to-day level. And then last piece, dashboards and data visualization. Obviously very, very big. You see a lot of clients looking to use Power BI on a regular basis. The great part about Jet Analytics is that it's very easy to build out dashboards and get the look, feel, and responsiveness that users are expecting when working with dashboards. So that introduces Jet Analytics. Like I mentioned, Jet Analytics is our full business intelligence application. This is our flagship product. It's where we have our happiest customers, it's where we have our most engaged customers. What it is at a high level is it's reporting against the data warehouse and cubes, but there are a few things that kind of set us apart. The first is when we talk about reporting against the data warehouse and cubes, we have a process set up in what's called the Jet Data Manager tool that you can build and customize these data warehouse and cubes very, very quickly for exactly what you need. And then with that, have a central source of truth. Now with Jet Analytics, you can also go in and rapidly deploy Power BI. So the great part is that once that's all set up, you can get up and running inside of Power BI within minutes. I'll actually spin up a Power BI dashboard at the end here from scratch using Jet Analytics. You can see how quickly and easily that's going to be set up. Jet Analytics is also going to provide a single source of truth. We talked about kind of consolidating multiple data sources, and you'll see that in the next example that I'll pull up where we'll walk through what that looks like. But what that means for the end user is there's no question about a specific number. Everybody's looking at the same set of data. You can have things like pre-calculated KPIs and be confident that everybody's looking at the same sort of data. And then kind of the last thing I want to highlight is because we have pre-built data projects for Business Central, for NAV, for GP, for AX and finance and supply chain, we can get up and running very quickly. The pre-built data sets, which for most clients are going to meet about 80% of what they need, installs in 2.5 to 3 hours. And then you can get any customizations that you need with our data warehouse automation tool within a matter of weeks. Now, most business intelligence applications, I think the Gartner stat is there's typically an 18-month deployment. With Jet Analytics, it's just a matter of weeks. So you're able to get up and running very quickly. So walking through that, I like to use this slide to illustrate what Jet Analytics is and what specifically a data warehouse and BI cubes are. Now, if I start over here on the left, this is my database. This could be my Dynamics database. This could be my entire technology stack. Now, all of this content is what's in what we call a relational format. So this would be tables and fields. If you think about kind of the purpose of those databases, the main purpose for those is you want to be able to store as much of that information as possible. Excuse me. Your challenge with all of this is that it's going to be fairly challenging to actually get that information out. And we'll see this in an example in a second here. Uh, with with kind of the standard basis here, the end user really has to understand where does all that information sit in my database and know how everything ties together. So that's going to be the overwhelming challenge if you're doing kind of real-time reporting. So you have to know how everything sits together. Now, this is fairly easy if you're looking at maybe a simple one table report, you can grab everything. But as soon as you start getting into multiple tables, it gets notably more complex. As soon as you start looking at multiple data sources, it gets even more complex. It can become very, very challenging. Now, with the data warehouse in cubes, you have a much easier time reporting because you're reporting against data sources that are optimized, not for storing data, but for reporting against it. So we start with the data warehouse. Data warehouse is going to only pull in what's going to be relevant. So you're going to have a much easier time reporting because you're not looking at, let's say, 1,000 tables. You're maybe looking at only 100, and everything's all tied together and cleaned up. It's organized by subject, so I don't need to go through and kind of find all my sales information. It's in one spot. And then I can have multiple data sources. So I can have my CRM data and my ERP data in one place. The relationship has been tied together once in the data source, and then all those details are intermarried. So I can look at details from both my CRM and my ERP in one single report in a single format. And data warehouse is typically kind of where most BI vendors are going to stop. With Jet, because we really have that deep experience into dynamics, we go into OLAP cubes. This actually makes reporting even easier. That's what we'll kind of focus on today. What the cubes will focus on are kind of specific business areas, and they'll factor in things like dimensionality. So I can go in and build out fairly complex reports. I can build out, kind of sales by item category, by year, with customer details, with any number of details that I want instantaneously, and easily be able to grab all of that information. And it's going to be instant because it's all pre-calculated. And then looking through that, you can also have things like pre-calculated values. I can have stuff like profit or average details that I want to pull in. And we'll have that single source of governed truth that everybody's looking at the same information when they go through. So looking at this kind of at a high level from an IT standpoint, you can kind of see what Jet Analytics, what a deployment's going to look like. We start over here on the left. We've got kind of all of our respective databases. I've got my Microsoft Dynamics database. I can have a CRM database, a legacy database. We'll talk about kind of connectivity options in a second here, but everything's going to be run through our ETL process, which is extract, transform, and load. We'll use the Jet Data Manager, which is kind of the engine behind this. What the Jet Data Manager does is it makes it very easy to build out the data warehouse in cubes in a point-and-click interface. What that means is that this is going to be 5 to 7 times faster in comparison to other applications. So if you think about kind of what you're getting with the data warehouse, you're getting SQL code, and an end user, if they're building this from scratch, they'd have to write all of that SQL code. Now with Jet Analytics, you've got the Jet Data Manager, and you've got the pre-built project. You can build in all the customizations that you need in a point-and-click interface, which is 5 to 7 times faster than trying to manually write that from scratch using SQL code, which is why we're able to deliver so much rapid time to value. Now, walking through kind of the details here, that information, the details that you need from your respective data sources are going to be pulled through the Jet Data Manager into our staging database, which is going to kind of clean everything up, only pull in what's going to be relevant, and then push to the data warehouse, which you can report against, or it can be used to populate the cubes. And we'll walk through what those look like in a second here. And then once it's in the cubes, you can go in and actually pull any of the details that you want. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of where you finally report against this. It could be inside of the Jet Excel add-in, could be inside of Power BI, could be using the Jet Hub to get into Office 365. So kind of thinking through the beginning of that example, we talked about different data sources. The great part about Jet Analytics is that we actually have hundreds of connector types for Jet Analytics. These are just a few examples. Again, I mentioned it. We can connect anything with SQL, OLE, OLDB, DBC, depending on kind of what you're looking at. We've got a wide number of APIs. We partnered with a company called CData, which is a lot of the content that you're seeing here. And that, again, allows us to pretty much connect to any database out there. If you have any questions about a specific data source, even if you're an existing Jet Analytics customer, you can definitely reach out to Optimus. We can take a look at it and see if there's connectivity to it. But the vast majority of the time, we can pull those details in, which gives you reporting against your entire technology stack. So with that being said, let's take a look at reporting. I'm going to switch my screen here. And we'll go into my example. And let me see here. Francine or the team at Optimus, can you now see the Excel document that I've pulled up?
Yes, John, right.
Perfect. Thanks, Gabo. So looking at this, again, this is the Jet ribbon here, and I'm toggling between a couple different data sources. But what we're seeing is we're just looking at Jet. And to give some context, I actually want to start out with kind of a real-time reporting example. So what is reporting like if you don't have analytics? What are the challenges that you need to focus on? Your challenges, I think, are really easily illustrated in what we're going to pull up here in a second. I just toggle between different databases. This might take a second. Let's make sure we grab the right one. There we go. So my challenge with a real-time reporting application is that when I go in and I need to build out a report, I need to know which of the 1,000 tables that come out of the box have the information that I need to have inside of my report. So you can see I can scroll through it. Business Central is a comparatively easily set up data source. So it's actually not that hard, but you still have to go through and find all of those details. If I go in here and I want to go in and take a look at customer, and then let's say I need to build out a customer sales report. Let's go number. I have to know where everything looks. I need to grab name. What else do I need? I want to maybe break this report out by geography. So let's go in and grab state. And let's grab our salesperson code and our sales amount. And let's drag and drop those details in. And we can exit out here. And you can see, all right, so I've got my information, but what I've really only grabbed here is kind of an overall data dump. I have to start massaging this data to actually get the report that I need. You know, if I just want to look at a specific state, I'm going to have to manually put that filter in. So I have to go through here again, take a look at all these details, tie all this information in together. And let's say I just want to look at state here. I then have to find that state, and then I have to look through all my records to decide which ones I want to look at. So let's say if I want to look at Oregon, we'll hit OK. So now I can kind of start getting a little bit more detail, but I still need a lot more detail for really this to be an actionable report. I probably need to go in and know how am I going to tie this out by different time frames to understand, you know, when is it I'm actually selling, making sales to customers, you know, kind of looking for the full term of our database. That's not really going to be helpful for us to actually spot new trends. I might want to actually understand, you know, maybe I don't know my salesperson code, so I need to know who my salesperson is. I'll have to add another table just to understand the salesperson name. And then maybe I run this. And then I'm going to have to understand, you know, at the University of Oregon, that's where I went to school, so I'm highly biased. I need to understand beyond that, what is it that I actually sold them? So in order to really get compelling information, I need a lot more details here. It's going to take a lot of work to actually pull all of that together. Now, this is actually comparatively easier. If I'm going in and I'm building out a more complex, I'm reporting against a more complex data source. Let's say I'm reporting against GP. It's going to be a lot more difficult. If we go in here, let's go back to design mode. And I'm trying to build out a report. This becomes even harder. It's because Jet Analytics or GP as a data source is a very complex schema. I have to know where everything's going to sit. And if you're looking at GP directly without Jet, you don't even have any of these friendly names. You have to be able to kind of build everything together in one spot. So incredibly difficult for end users. If I need to go in and let's say I want to build out kind of a sales item category report, that is going to be a lot of work. I don't even know where to start on this. It's going to be fairly difficult. Like if I need to just see what are the items that we're actually selling, I'm going to have to dig through all of these and know how to connect them together. But if I toggle over to our cubes, the process becomes a lot easier. So again, now we've switched over, we've turned our sights on Jet Analytics. And now we're going to go in and pull details out. Now, I mentioned at the beginning with Jet Analytics, we've got pre-built data sets for GP, NAV, BC, other Dynamics ERPs. These are kind of the 6 pre-built cubes that come out of the box. We've got sales, we've got receivables, we've got purchasing, payables, inventory, finance, and so those are the different options. You can customize any of these very, very easily using the Jet Data Manager. But for this example, we'll just go in and grab sales, but we'll go through actually most of those cubes later on. We can walk through, and now if I want to look at, let's say, sales by item, I can just get all those details pulled in. I can know I can come in here and grab sales. I know I can grab my item type. And then I can get additional details depending on what's important to me. Maybe I want to look at my different salespeople territories. I can tie those in. Let's say I want to look at different posting dates. I can pull all of those details in. And then maybe I want to look at, if I'm inside of GP, I want to look at my different databases. I can grab all of those details. Now I can kind of filter all of those details out. And then I can even get specific details depending on kind of what I want to look at. I can see, all right, this is a specific sales inventory I'm selling. I could even go in and kind of have some customer details here. We can drop in and understand what are we actually selling to our respective customers. So a lot of flexibility here. And even if I'm looking at a complex report or a complex database like GP, I can easily grab exactly what I need. Now let's go back into this first example, kind of rebuild this same concept inside of Jet Analytics. So again, we kind of looked at this. We've got looking at our need to switch data sources here. We want to go back to our Jet Corp data source. So again, we want to rebuild this same report. We want to give it more context inside of Jet Analytics. So we'll do that on this next tab. And we'll delete a few of these just to clean everything up. So looking at this same concept, we're going to go in and look at the respective cubes that we need to see. We can go into our pivot table. And let's go in and look at sales. Let's hit OK. And we can take a look here and understand what we need to see. So we want to look at our sales amount. And then I wanted to look at these details by sell to customer. So able to grab that pretty quickly. And I can even add in a slicer because I need to take a look at kind of some specific states. So let's just look at Oregon. Now we can see all those details. And then maybe if we want to get more details, we can drop in our salesperson details pretty quickly. And okay, this is kind of showing us total sales. That isn't really useful for trend analysis. Let's drop in our dates. And you can see, we can instantly kind of see all of those details. Now, let's say I actually want to filter this out and specifically just look at the University of Oregon. I want to understand, what information have we sold them over the last couple of years? So let's take a look. You can see I can actually filter all of these details down. I can grab the University of Oregon. And then I can drop in, maybe I want to actually look at item category. I can easily configure that here. I can get all of those details. I can get down to specific items. And then let's say beyond this, I want to look at not just what we're selling, but I want to understand a few more components about this. I want to understand sales amount, but I also want to understand what's it costing us, what's profit percentage, maybe what's quantity. I can get all of those details added in instantly. So I can build out a pretty complex report in a matter of seconds. And I can do so without understanding the underlying structure of my data, just understanding what it is I need to know. And then on this, I can actually drill into some of these details. So I can double click and I can see all of the details for those sales numbers. And this is critical because, again, with Jet Analytics, I can be reporting against multiple data sources. So I could actually pull all this information into a single format. Maybe I updated ERPs. So some of this is coming from a historical data source. I can easily grab any of those details that I need without having to try too hard. So that's that. Now let's take a look at kind of a couple other areas of the business that you can use Jet Analytics to report against. We talked about one bill to report against our entire business. So let's say, kind of we make a jump here. And instead of just being able to look at sales, now we want to actually understand our accounts receivable. You can do that incredibly easily. We can pull in, this is actually one of our pre-built reports that comes out of the box, but you can see how easy it was to actually build and modify this. We just grabbed kind of a couple of elements here. We grabbed our aging, transactional detail, our currency details. We grabbed customer details, and then we dropped in some information because we are, in this example, operating in the US and Canada. So we need to see a multi-currency evaluation. We can see all those details instantly. This can easily be built. This can be modified. I can look at things like upcoming receivables. And so I can go in and kind of see what's coming down the line. I can kind of start thinking about how can I use Jet Analytics to solve some of those bigger business challenges. If I'm really concerned about cash flow, can I look at where my upcoming receivables are? Can I look at some of the options for clients that maybe haven't paid us in 30, 60, or 90 days? I can do the same thing if I want to take a look at accounts payable. Pull those over here. Same concept. I can go in, I can see all of those details. Yep, accounts payable by currency. You can see now I'm looking at the AP cube, have all of those details. Everything's easily broken out. I can look at kind of other areas of the business. I can take a look at inventory. Let's pull that out. You can see purchase history value. Same concept. Couple of selections to build all this out. Couple of drops in for slicers, and I get all the details that I need. Or I can take a look at some financial reports. I can see my balance sheet. I can see my income statement over time. And this is really powerful. I want to note, because there's always some question on the finance reports. With finance reports in Jet Analytics, what we see is a lot of organizations, if they're running their current financials, they'll still keep using Jet reports for that. Because it allows them to, drill directly back into their database if they're looking at specific trends. But the powerful thing with Jet Analytics is if you want to build out your financial statements going back a few years for maybe back to data sources that you don't currently have access to, or I guess legacy data sources that you're not currently able to report against in your current format. With Jet Analytics, you can tie all that information together. You can pull that into a single data source, and you can go in, and even if you've got legacy ERPs, you can tie together all that information so you have a single chart of accounts and relate all those details so you can see a more robust picture of your financials going back through legacy systems. So let's take a look here. I think those were the key reporting examples I wanted to show. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to change gears here. We're going to talk a little bit about dashboards and data visualization. And we'll call back to a session I actually did in Summit a couple of years ago. I always had this question because as I've been here for coming up on 5 years, there was always the request for dashboards. Users always wanted them. And sometimes there was specific insight in them, but sometimes there was people that you had executives that really wanted to be able to have a dashboard set up. So kind of wanted to do some research into kind of why that's important. And that's kind of what we came up with here. I think kind of the big reason that users want to jump into dashboards and where they can get a lot of value out of that is that, kind of looking at some of these statistics, people get a better understanding of their business when they work with interactive dashboards and they can see all those details. Think about kind of what people remember best. Most people remember 10% of what they hear, 20% of what they read, 30% of what they see, but 80% of what they see and do. So if you really want to get a good sense of your business, you want to be able to remember as many of the details as possible. And so the best way to do that is to actually be able to interact with your data. And dashboarding gives you the best possible way to do that. The more you know and remember about your business, the more you're going to be able to, kind of sit in a conversation and say, hey, that happened this year. I know why. Let's talk through those different options. So I think that's kind of why people kind of lean towards data visualization applications like Power BI, which are really great applications. I love working with Power BI. It's a top-notch application, beautiful front end, looks very, very well. But the challenge that most people have is kind of tying all that information together. So we'll talk through how you can solve that challenge very, very easily. Now, data visualization is really going to be able to help your business in general. Kind of a couple key things that we've looked at and we've seen from users that implement dashboarding. First is you're going to get some improved insight. So if you're visualizing data, it's a lot easier for users to go in to spot and track patterns. It's also easier for them to go in and look at, kind of what are my overall trends versus my specific outliers. What should I be worried about versus what should be a blip in the system. But in order to really be able to do that, you need to have a robust data model. So I need to be able to look at data beyond just that surface level. I need to be able to drill into some of those details. Another kind of key thing is that this can give you a single place to make a decision. So you can get faster decision making. If I can go into one location to see kind of all of my details, I always kind of use the example of, maybe I'm looking at, how do I spend the most marketing dollars? My marketing dollars most effectively. And maybe I've got 3 or 4 different systems that I need to report against. So maybe I need to pull Google ad details and then look at how that relates to a promo code that we used, and then look at my ERP data to see, okay, where does that tie in? And then also look at, well, when was that promo code optimized and how did we deploy out to the right customers, and that information sitting in my CRM data. If I have to build out a report manually against that, I have to spend all my time filtering data and pulling it in. I could spend, hours, if not days, trying to pull that information all into a single location, which means missed opportunity. If I have a data source where all of that information is already tied up and I can say, hey, tell me which customers purchased with this promo code that were part of, this specific advertising campaign, I can get that information instantly, and I can start deciding where do I want to deploy my resources moving forward. This also is going to help users to ask better questions. The more robust of a data model you have, the more details that you can get into. And you can ask, kind of beyond just surface level questions. Why is that actually important? And get more details there. Now, we talked a little bit about Power BI. Power BI is, again, an amazing application. There is a challenge for a lot of users, is that in order to actually get that data into the format that they need, they have to kind of go in and tie everything together. So if you think about not necessarily Power BI, but just a raw data visualization tool, these are the steps that you have to go through. And this is actually from this textbook here. The author of it went to MIT and they wrote this out. But looking at kind of the key 7 stages of visualizing data, users have to acquire that data. They have to parse it out. So they have to pull in and organize everything. They have to filter it out. So they have to understand, I'm only looking at what's relevant. They have to be able to mine that data. So they have to understand what's the relationship between all of that data. And then they have to finally, once they've got it all cleaned up, be able to represent that data and then refine it, which means we might have to redo everything to actually get the right look and feel that they need. And then finally, they can interact with that. Now, with Jet Analytics and with Dynamics, most of these steps are already done. you think about, kind of the acquire, parse in mind. The good news is that if you're using a Dynamics ERP, you probably already have your financial information. You've already got your financial records put in there. You don't need to give that meaning or parse it out. Those are financial transactions. Those details are already there. You do need to filter it out to make sure that you're looking at the right set of information, but that's where Jet Analytics can come in and make sure that you can kind of clean that up, that you can make sure you don't make bad data look good. And then once that's set up, you'll see how easy it is to actually represent your initial dashboard, and then refine those details and then interact with everything. So you can tie everything together. So thinking through how this looks from a deployment standpoint, again, we'll go back to this slide just because we're going to end up here on Power BI, but keep in mind, you can clean up that data with the Jet Data Manager. You can pull content from any data source, tie everything together pretty seamlessly. And then you can report, for our examples, we'll show a dashboard inside of Excel, and then we'll show some dashboards inside of Power BI. So a lot of flexibility in terms of how you're going to visualize that in the end. So looking at that, let's pull up another example here. And I'm going to start actually with an example inside of Excel, because it's actually an underutilized data visualization application. This is the same concept, but we're going against the sales cubes again. But you can see how easy it was for me to actually put all those details together. I can go in, you can see I just tied this together as a salesperson on document and sales amount tied in one location. And then I grabbed my initial graph just using Excel, did the same thing with sales over time, did the same thing with sales by item category, did the same thing with sales by more detailed item category, depending on what I want to look at. And then I've got my overall dashboard. So I can kind of see all my details. I can split these out depending on what's going to be relevant. I can tie in the relevant set of details that I need, and I can slice and dice this. So this was all done inside of Excel. So kind of showing how robust of a data visualization platform Excel can be. But most users, when they want to build out a dashboard, they want something that's going to look a little bit nicer. So that's where we're going to go into Power BI. And similar to the reporting overview that we did, we're going to kind of look at kind of that same challenge that you have with Power BI as you would have with a real-time reporting application. So if I open up Power BI, similar to kind of opening up the browser against Excel, I have to kind of know where my data is going to live. So let's say I just want to go in and I want to look directly against my SQL Server. I need to be able to pull all that information in. And then if I need to actually build out my database or build out my report on my dashboard, I have to know, okay, in this Jet Corp, where do all these tables sit? How does everything relate in? How do I actually pull that information in? I have to pull all those details in, and I have to go kind of table by table to tie everything together. Then I have to go through the process of transforming that data. I'm going to need DAX coding to tie all that together so I can actually get what I need. Now, with Jet Analytics, we can connect Power BI directly into the cubes. So let's enter that in here. And then let's go into sales. We'll open this up. And now I don't have that complex list of tables and fields. I have kind of all by measures and dimensions that I use to build out some of those complex reports. Now I can build out exactly what I need really easily. I can go sales. And then let's look at item category. And then let's look at sales. And let's look at posting date. And let's look at maybe a few more of these. So I want to look at sales. I want to look at this broken out by my different global dimensions. And then maybe I want to throw in a couple of KPIs here. You can grab those. Let's grab sales amount. And then let's look at maybe profitability. We can grab those. All right, so it's a good start. But then let's say we want to build out a little more complexity. Let's really utilize Power BI for what it's really good at, which is more complex data visualization. Maybe I want to look at where are my most profitable customers located. So let's look at profitability. Let's look at our sell to city by customer. And now you can see all of those details. And then I can toggle between these. I can drill into these details depending on what I want to see. The great part with Jet Analytics is because that data model is already put together, you can actually get into a level deeper. You can look at my specific items. I can tie all that information together. This is the responsiveness you expect for a dashboard. So with Jet Analytics, you can tie all that information together and get it instantly. Perfect. All right, so that's kind of all the content I had today, but I'm happy to take questions if anybody would like to run through any questions. So I'll stop sharing my screen here.